Well, hi guys, Lance here from the Rocky Mountain Life channel. Today is November 15th, 2021. And in 2 more days, day after tomorrow, the 17th, will be the 1-year anniversary to the day that I picked up my 2021 Beta 500 RRS. So today is the 12-month review. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on what I like about the bike and the thoughts of what I don't like about the bike. And at the end, I will give you my conclusion as to whether I would do it all over again and buy the same bike and do it the same way, knowing what I know now. Now, just to give you an idea, the beginning of this ride today, if I can show it to you, it might not show up on my screen. I've got 878.6 miles on this bike and 42 hours and 23 minutes. So over 42 hours of use and almost 900 miles. But I'm going to do a ride today and give you my thoughts on the things I love about my Beta, the things I don't like about my Beta, and whether or not I would do it all over again, in hopes that it might help you decide if you should get one of these. So let's get to it. So I'm going to start off with the things about this bike that I like, and in no particular order. First thing I like about this bike is how light it is. It really doesn't weigh that much for being a 500 dual sport, and I really like how easy it makes it to maneuver. It's easy to turn around. It's easier for me to pick it up and put it on my stand in the garage. It's easier for me to load in the back of my pickup truck. All those things I like about it. It's easy to flick around the trails. Now, for those of you who watched the videos that I made with Ferret Face in the summertime, where we did some comparison between my 500 and his 390, you might remember that I mentioned then that I preferred the feel of his 390 on the trails. And that's true. It is a little bit easier to maneuver, a little less rotating mass in the engine, lugs really well. This one lugs really well too, but I think the 390 might lug and tractor just a tiny bit better. But like I said in that video, I am not sure I'd have been able to tell the difference if I hadn't ridden both of them back to back. So this bike, 500, is very light and very flickable when you compare it to most other dual sports. Second thing I like about this bike is I love the power. This thing is strong. I've seen dyno runs where they clock this motor at the wheel at about 40, I want to say 47.5 horsepower, if memory serves me correctly. And by all accounts and everything I've been able to learn and read, I haven't ridden all these bikes, of course, but it has more power, more throttle response, snappier than a KTM 500 EXC, the Husqvarna 501, pretty much anything else. I like that. Now, having said that, it does get me into trouble sometimes on the trails, because like right now, I'm on a nice road. And it'll really pull. And if you're not careful coming out of a corner on a trail, I haven't done any single track yet really, but like double track for ATVs, you come around a fairly sharp corner. If you're not careful with the throttle, it can cause you some problems. But I like the power. Kind of connected with the power of the bike is I like the fact that Beta sends you, when you get a bike like this, 2 front sprockets. It came stock from the factory with a 13-tooth front sprocket on it, which is taller gearing, better suited for dual sporting, highway mileage, 55-mile-an-hour paved roads to get to your dirt roads, things like that. And I rode it for quite a while with that on there. But I spent a lot of time on the ATV trails in second gear, or in first gear rather, when I wanted to be in second, sometimes third. But it comes with a 15 tooth front sprocket. 13. Comes with a 13 and a 15. And you put the other one on, and it shortens it down quite a bit. And that's the one that I have on right now, is a 13 tooth. Shorten down the gearing, better for trails, better for slow speed stuff. I love the fact that Beta sends that to you with the bike, and that you don't have to buy an aftermarket one or find one after the fact. Love that. Another thing I really like about this bike is I love the dual mapping. If you can see that little blue light down here, right there. The blue light means it's in the sun mode. That's the normal mapping. That's regular power. You can just push it on the fly. The white light comes on. It's got a little cloud with some raindrops coming out of it. That's a more muted power delivery. Not as strong. Not as snappy. And when I'm on tighter trails, particularly because I'm not a great trail rider, I tend to put it in rain mode. I love that. I love having that at just the push of a button. And you can kind of alter the characteristics and the feel of your motor and how it responds to you. I really like that. Something else I like about this bike so far, and I haven't had it for more than a year, but so far it has been uber reliable. And I've had a few comments, people ask me questions and say, hey, how's the reliability? They read the owner's manual and they hear about the service intervals. Well, when I talked to the dealership, I even talked to the service guys, and one of the things that was really impressive to me is this is a dealership that sells multiple brands. They sell Yamahas, Kawasaki's, Hondas, KTM's, okay? Not just these Betas. And most of those guys in that dealership, including the shop guys, the maintenance guys, ride Betas. And they have access to pretty much anything. That told me a lot, that they ride Betas. And when I asked about the service intervals and how often do you have to tear this engine apart, rebuild the top end, the recommended service intervals to rebuild your end and replace your pistons and piston and rings and all that stuff is for racers if you're really hard on it. Ferret Face has well over 90 hours. He's probably got well over 100 hours now on his original motor, and it feels absolutely sensational. I rode it, feels great, very responsive, very snappy, it doesn't run poorly, and he says it feels just like it did when it was brand new. So take that into consideration. But I love the reliability so far. It's been absolutely great. I just change the oil every so often. That's another, brings me to the next thought of what I like about it. It's the transmission oil and the engine oil are separate. So you put tranny oil in one side of the case and you put engine oil on the other side of the case. The only thing that's tricky about that is making sure you know which side is what. Don't put your transmission oil inside your engine case and vice versa. But I mean, get your owner's manual out, just pay attention to what you're doing. It's not that complicated. So I like that. I think that's good for the longevity of the motor. Engine oil is pretty cheap, so are oil filters. You can do that every few rides, every 10, 20 hours if you wanted to. Keep fresh oil in these things. I think it would just run great. I've got 42 and a half hours on mine, and I have changed the oil I think 3 times. Another thing that I really like about this bike, and I guess it's kind of connected back to power, but it's not just the overall horsepower and torque that it has, and it has lots, but I love the linear feel of the power. It's very smooth. The throttle is responsive, but it's not this aggressive hit. Beta's tagline is rideability. I think they have that with these things. Even this 500, which is fairly potent of a motor on a light machine. I love that. I love the linear power delivery and how smooth it is. Another thing I like about this bike is the suspension. Now, I am by no means a suspension expert at all, but I love the suspension on this. Now, if you get a race edition, It has the KYB forks on it. This has got Sachs, ZF Sachs. And Sachs is slowly growing in its reputation, but initially a few years ago it didn't really have a great reputation. And from what I understand, some of the older model Beta RRSs with these older versions of these forks were not that good. But Beta has been improving them throughout. Sachs has been, I should say, and they've gotten a lot better. I have never bottomed this thing out. Of course, I'm also not racing and I'm not jumping high. I hit a few little small jumps, but I'm also well over 200 pounds. So I'm a decent guy. I put a lot of weight on the bike. Decent sized guy, I should say. I'm a decent guy too, I think, but that all depends on who you ask. But I like the suspension on this. I have not touched the front forks at all in the year that I've had it. I haven't set sag. I know how to do that, but I don't know how to do it by myself. I don't have the special sag tools. What I have is a tape measure and a wall I could lean the bike up against while I sit on it. Can't do it on my own. Don't know how without that little tool. So I need some help setting the sag. The only thing I've done to the rear shock is I turned it one click clockwise, which I think, could be wrong, but I think that makes it still slightly stiffer. And I did that so that the compression was a little bit less when I sat on the bike. It felt like that's what it did. I could be wrong, but that's what it felt like. That's all I've done to the suspension, and I love it. I think it's great for my skill level and for the way I use this bike. I have zero complaints about that. So that's another thing I like about this bike, is the suspension. Another thing I really like about it, which might seem silly, and it kind of is, certainly not all that important, but I love the way it looks, or at least the way it looked when it was new and clean. I bought it to make it dirty. I bought it to use it. I like it when it looks pretty and clean, but it always makes me hesitant to take it out and get it dirty again because it looks so nice. Another thing I like about this bike, and it's not anything specific, it's sort of a cumulative effect of this particular feature that I like, and that is that Beta listens to its customer base and makes alterations to their bikes in a response to try and improve them. I don't feel that some of these bigger companies like Honda and Suzuki, KTM, okay, people have been complaining about the weight of the DRZ and how it needs all those 3x3 mods. Ooh, this is going to be dark. I'm sure you're seeing absolutely nothing on the camera. When I first unloaded, it was sunny, but now it's cloudy. But I love that the fact that this 2021 has an improved kickstand foot. That was a problem before. It has improved wiring on the electrical system. That was a problem before. Ferretface had some troubles with his 2019. Well, they've rerouted some of the wires in different locations, and they beefed up the gauge of the wiring, and it seems to have eliminated it. I've had zero problems with my electrical system on mine. I love how they have been working to improve the forks and the suspension due to the complaints of people, and that's something that's done in connection with the manufacturer of the actual components. But I love that Beta is involved in that. They like to try and improve their bikes, and every couple of years they come out with a new iteration with some changes that are great. I'm sure if I were to buy 2023, it would have fixed a few things on here that I don't like, and I'll be talking about those things coming up here soon. Wow, that's a pretty spot. I'm enjoying just tooling up this road, freeing up my mind to think about all these things and discuss them with you. And one other thought on what I like about this bike is I like the overall feel. Now what I mean by the overall feel is just the experience of riding it. Now there are a couple things about the riding that I don't like that are correctable, and I'm going to be discussing that in my upcoming section when I talk about what things I don't like about this bike. But overall, this is a comfortable machine to ride. Another thing that I really like about this bike, and it's kind of a portion of a small part of that overall feel, I like the fact that it's road legal. I know this sounds silly because you can buy lots of road legal dual sports, but this is, you know, I hate to use cliches, but in essence, it is a dirt bike with dirt bike tires, 21-inch front, 18-inch rear. It's a dirt bike that they put lights on and a turn signal and mirrors and a license plate. But for somebody like me that mostly does ATV trails, cheap roads and things like that, it's perfect. I'm not throwing a bunch of bags on it and a big old backpack and a tent and gonna go out and moto camp and stuff. Nothing against guys who do that, and this bike would be capable of it, but that's not really what it's meant for. That's not playing to its strengths. And for the way I use it, this is absolutely perfect. I love the fact that it's road legal. There are a lot of these trails and even roads out here like this one that I'm on here in Colorado that have signs all over it that say no unlicensed vehicles. So you can't bring your side-by-side. You can't bring an ATV. It has to be road legal. I love the fact that this is still so trail worthy, which is part of the overall feel of the bike. I also love the fact that this bike is fuel injected. Now the newer dual sports are, KTM's newer dual sports are fuel injected. So is the new Kawasaki KLX 300. I have a good friend in Missouri who has one. He absolutely loves it. And I think that's great. The new Honda CRF 300 is fuel injected. Now there are some people who like carburetors and they like the feel of the carburetors. And I'm not knocking that, that's fine. I don't have any real issues with carburetors, except I live in Colorado. My house is at 7,100 feet above sea level. Right now I am at 10,000 feet. Okay? I started this ride at 9,700. I can go down to, 2,000 feet. I don't have to worry about how this motor is going to perform. I can go up to 13,000 feet on one of our big passes here in Colorado, and the bike's going to do awesome. I love that. I don't have to rejet it. I don't have to adjust it because I don't know how to do all that stuff. I'm not a mechanic. So I love the fact that this is fuel injected and it just runs every time I start it and no matter where I take it. Love that. Love the fact that it doesn't flame out. I'm kind of going back to motor stuff. But all these things I love about this bike. Another item that I love about this bike is this. I love this Trailtech Voyager that these things come with. Yeah, you can nitpick and say, oh, it's not the Trailtech Pro and it's not color screen and it's not a very big screen. I don't care. This bike came with this installed, ready to go. I love that. Yeah, to record where I'm going. That's what I'm doing right now with it. Tells me my engine temperature. Tells me which direction I'm facing. It's got a compass. Tells me my speed if I wanted it to. Tells me my RPMs if I wanted it to. Tells me my engine hours. Tells me my bike odometer, as in the front wheel, the odometer mileage, and also tells me the GPS mileage. I love that. It's got a little micro SD slot over here on this side, back there. I could download GPX files off my computer, plan a trip, put that trip on a micro SD card, stick that in this unit, download it into the machine, and it would navigate me. So I wouldn't have to depend on my phone here. I love that. I love the fact that it comes with it. And yeah, you can order them for your bike and you can install them. A lot of people do that. I don't know how to do that. I could order that thing and it would show up and I'd open it up and look at the wires and go, wow, that's cool. What do I do with it now? I love the fact that I didn't have to worry about all that stuff. So those are the things I like about this bike. So let's start talking about things that I do not like about this motorcycle.